Welcome to episode 19 of the Midday Mumbles podcast. I'm Gage.
I'm Isaac.
And I'm Brody.
And today we have a special guest on the line, Thomas Young. How you doing, Thomas?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
Pretty good. But before we get to the episode, this episode is brought to you by our Patreon. As usual, go to patreon.com/middaymumbles to help support the show. Again, that's patreon.com/middaymumbles. One more time, that's patreon.com/middaymumbles. Let's get right into the show. What up? Wow, we're going fast tonight.
Oh, jeez.
So how's everyone doing today? This week? Brody, Isaac, and Thomas. Thomas is our special guest today. He's from the Maine GOP, the Great Old Party.
That I am.
We try and tell jokes on this program. Yes.
Yeah.
Our jokes are subpar.
At best.
But so how's everyone doing today?
I'm doing good. I am doing pretty swell.
Yeah.
It's been a kind of a boring week, but
How's it been?
yeah. I mean, not much going on. Just kind of doing the routine.
It's a warm week.
It has been a warm week. That's been nice.
It's spring. Spring's coming. We lost an hour. Yeah, spring.
I saw a funny post on Facebook that was like all the stages of going from winter to spring in Maine. It was like winter, fool, spring, winter 2.
I saw something like that. How's the weather where you are at, Thomas?
Very muddy. I actually had to reschedule one of my appointments because I couldn't get up their road.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Really?
real muddy in Jay.
Gotta throw in your mud trucking tires.
I guess so.
Yeah. So why don't we jump straight into it, Thomas? Why don't you tell the listeners what you do for the Maine GOP?
Well, I guess to start off, I'm a field organizer for Trump Victory, and Trump Victory is basically the RNC, the Maine GOP, and Trump's re-election campaign all meshed into one. And really what I do there is I organize volunteers, register voters, make sure petitions get signed, and basically just overall keep the volunteer base active and give them options to participate in politics.
So from what I hear, you guys are looking for volunteers, a lot of volunteers for the Trump victory. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are always looking for volunteers. I mean, in a perfect world, every registered voter is volunteering for one side or the other, preferably us, of course. But
yeah, I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump and help support the candidacy of someone else.
Yeah.
Give him a fair chance.
Oh yeah. So when did you start with the GOP? How did you get involved? From what I've heard, from what you told me, you volunteered first and then you got a position, correct?
Yeah, and that's actually fairly standard for how we recruit. So I started working with Paul Brown, a local candidate, a couple of years ago, and I joined the College Republicans here at UMF, University of Maine at Farmington, for those that don't know. And yeah, then I became the president and treasurer of that club. One of my bosses, Benjamin Hincher, reached out to me. He thought I'd make a good volunteer. I worked with him for a little bit.
Yep.
I became a field fellow, and from there I progressed to field organizer.
Sweet.
That's a good system.
Yeah.
Because then everyone that has power, there's someone that's actually passionate about it. It's not just some random nobody.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's a pretty simplistic progression. You do well at your job and you get more responsibilities. You are in charge of more people. At the volunteer level, that doesn't matter as much because you're not necessarily in charge of anyone. However, once you start progressing, you are in charge of more and more people.
Makes sense.
So you go around recruiting people to join either as a volunteer. Mostly volunteers from what you've told me. So how do you find people how do you find people to volunteer?
Well, that's actually a really interesting one. The way I go about it personally is we do a lot of voter registration. And if I notice they check the Republican box, I tend to ask them if they volunteered before, if they have any interest in volunteering. So that's how I find my people. But for example, Gage, I found you through my boss, Sharon, and she just saw that you were wearing a Make America Great hat, I believe. So,
yeah.
I mean, anywhere and everywhere is where we're looking for volunteers. I know some of us have found a chiropractor for one of our staff members. They just have to start talking about politics. They mentioned their big Trump guy, and now he's a good volunteer for us.
Wow. Yeah. I've met Thomas in person once before, and I was telling him, I told you, Thomas, that I've gotten more compliments for my hat than I think anything before. Like for the country being so divided, I seem to get a lot of positive responses towards it, especially locally.
Well, Gage, I mean, to be fair, you also do get a lot of dirty looks for it too. I mean, it's both ways.
But I've never had a dirty look person speak up to me and say, like I've never had that happen before. But I have a lot of people who are Trump supporters. They love what he's doing because, I mean, he's doing a great job. And I mean, he's doing he's done more in his first term than I think. And this could be debatable, but I think personally he's done a really good job. You know, he's not a career politician, and that's really what I think voters are looking for in 2016, and what they'll be looking for again this November, which is I'd say it's pretty awesome. But yeah, so so you go to Farmington, correct?
Yep,
Farmington College.
I do.
So what are your plans anyway? Like what are you doing with that?
Well, currently I'm a political science major. I have minors in philosophy, legal studies, and international global studies, which I fell into a couple of those just because of the way general education works. And then I plan on going to law school.
Law school. Yeah. So are you planning on running for any office later on?
As of right now, I'm not really sure. I think we talked about this a little bit. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't think I'll ever go for anything high profile like presidency or anything.
Well,
just seems like too much work for me.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but you're in the spot when someone runs for president, they're in the spotlight of everything.
Well, yeah, everything you've ever done in your entire life is just going to get starting. Everything will be found. They will mention everything. You are on the spotlight. Good luck.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a lot of pressure to hold that position.
I can imagine. And not just that. I mean, any high position like that. I mean, just look at what they did with Brett Kavanaugh, for instance. His family. That went on for a couple months, and it turned out that it was all false. It was made up, which kind of, I don't know. Just politics nowadays. I think it ought to be you run. But there's so much dirty money, dirty stuff in politics, and it's you're always seeing those campaign ads where I don't know. It's it definitely is. It's a big turnoff for people to get into politics because they don't want their whole life spewed out into a 30-second commercial during the news. So
a big part of that is sadly the divide that's been happening lately. I mean, both sides are just getting way too into the mode of attacking each other. And you said earlier, you get a lot of people that compliment your hat, and we love to hear that, not just because it's support for us, but because it's people just communicating about politics in a friendly way. And we love that here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, I would say that's one of the biggest problems in our country that I've even noticed in school and whatnot is I have some sort of view on something. I'm passionate about it. And I can't just really have a general discussion without people getting upset about it. I'm trying to hear their side of it. I'm trying to rationalize with them, to really figure out how I feel about subjects. But everyone's just closed to that now. There's no communication.
Yeah, I fully agree. The divide is awful. I mean, I have a lot of voters, or actually not voters, people I'm trying to register because I think everyone should register to vote. It's a huge part of our system, and they just refuse to because they don't want to get into politics because they see the attacking and the divisiveness, and they just want no part of it, which is just a tragedy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely annoying. I mean, we live in a democracy, and you heard all those people in 2016 complaining when Trump got elected. Like I was telling you in person, a lot of people, believe it or not, then a lot of older people too, they don't know if they're registered to vote or not, and that's definitely a terrible thing because a lot of them haven't voted in years. Because as years go on, politics is getting more heated, to the point where you have radical left and radical right people just full on attacking like that scene at the end of Avengers Endgame. Like they're just going at it, you know what I mean? So but yeah, I don't know. We need to really find middle ground. There's too many radical people on the left and the right. We need some moderates that need to go in and get stuff done. And I think that's definitely what Trump's doing, because he knows how to do deals. I mean, he built his empire in New York City, and he's had businesses that have succeeded, they failed. I mean, that's life, but he's really doing a good job, from my opinion, my stance, and from a lot of people I speak to, as president. So yeah. We go on tangents a lot on this show.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would interject, but you're just going so much. There's no right place.
Oh yeah. But yeah. So you're going. So you have plans to get into law, like you said, Thomas, right?
Yep, I have plans to go into law as a prosecutor, probably a district attorney somewhere.
Cool. So are you planning on eventually working your way up as a how does that work? A judge? I don't know. Am I saying the right thing? I have no idea how the law system works, but
yeah, I put a little thought into it, but not a lot. I mean, my dad was a cop, so for the longest time I wanted to follow in his footsteps to be a real life superhero sort of deal. But then around the time Black Lives Matter came out, and then that whole controversy, I realized that cops don't always get the respect they deserve. So I decided to take a different approach to the legal system, and instead of going and getting the bad guys, just making sure that the people who commit crimes are actually put away and they don't slip through the justice system.
That's a noble way of thinking about that. I like that. Yeah. A lot of people look at people in the law system as just liars, not as people that are genuinely trying to do a good thing. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, I see a lot of defense attorneys catch a lot of flack because they're defending people who either have committed crimes or obviously have been alleged to commit crimes. But what a lot of people don't understand is the legal system doesn't work without them. I mean, I chose prosecutor, but I have all the respect for defense attorneys. I mean, without them, we don't have a justice system, quite simply.
Right. I mean, if you were just going to get locked up for every little thing that you're accused of, even if you didn't do it, and you have no system of defending yourself, that's an awful system.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a cousin down in Georgia. He is currently in the works of becoming a defense attorney, which the family always jokes about because we're on opposite sides. But his whole deal is he saw the legal system from the inside, and he decided that the people who need defense need good defense, because quite like I said, you just don't have a justice system if it's one-sided.
Right. I would like to see the family arguments that happened between you two if that ever happens. It'd be intense.
They are.
So I got a question for you, Thomas. Anyway, what do you think of this whole coronavirus thing? Anyway, you think it's being blown out of proportion?
I definitely think it's worthy of taking some precautions. No doubt, it's quite the virus that's come out. However, I do think it's being blown out of proportion by the media. I mean, the death rate's definitely nothing that we can just ignore, but I don't think it's worthy of panic to the point of we literally have stores running out of hand sanitizer and toilet paper and paper towels. And it's really the panic of these people who are over preparing that cause the shortages, which then make panic worthwhile. If everyone just relaxed a little bit, I think we'd be in a much better spot. And we are taking steps to make ourselves safe at the governmental level.
Yeah, Yeah, I've seen some. So I was watching Fox the other night, and I was saying they were criticizing Trump's choice to put Mike Pence in charge on the whole coronavirus thing, and I don't know. I think it's more or less in Asia, China and all that. I don't think it's really something we should worry about over here as much.
Well, Gage, I think you said something there that's pretty pivotal, because Trump took something that he could have power over and he chose to hand it down to someone so that he can better do his job, which is really big, because most people in power in most countries, they won't let down that power. They want ultimate power. That's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I wasn't saying. I
know. That's not where you're going. It's just that came to my head.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Have there been any reported deaths in the U.S. of coronavirus? Yeah. There have been.
Yeah, tons, like over 20.
Yeah, I heard some stuff. It was in New Hampshire a couple weeks ago. The first case in New Hampshire. I'm praying to God it doesn't come to Maine. I'll tell you what. But it's only affecting older people, like, really bad. A lot of younger people are getting sick, and a lot of people don't even have symptoms. So we don't really know how many people are have it or have signs of it, because a lot of people don't even have symptoms, which is kind of scary.
Yeah,
it's a really sneaky virus.
Yeah, that's definitely the scariest part. The fact that it can be transferred and transmitted before the symptoms show. I mean, I'm in no position to know how you would even fight that. I'm glad we have people who are much more knowledgeable than me in charge, but that's certainly the scary part.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to sue coronavirus, I think we've got the.
Yeah. I don't know. I said it. I said the same thing. We were doing a podcast. It was just Brody and I quite a few weeks ago, and Brody was talking about the coronavirus stats, and I was saying it's going to be similar to Ebola. It's going to come into the U.S. There's going to be a few cases, and we're not going to hear anything about it. But this has been constant on the news every night. I've seen so many reports on CBS, ABC, Fox, all the MSNBC, all those big news networks, and I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a bigger deal, but there was a stat that a scientist had said that about 100 million people are going to be affected by February 22nd in the United States. I don't think there's any more than 1,000 or something. The last time I looked into it, but it's definitely not 120 million.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Just praying to God that it doesn't come to. I'm glad we live in rural Maine.
I mean, we have the best situation, but we're in the best position for this. We're in a developed country in a low population area. We stand pretty good chances.
We do, yeah. And even if it did come to Maine, Portland maybe,
right?
But we're going to be fine, Just hunker down a little bit in Jackman. We'll be fine.
God, I love Jackman.
They must be... Yeah, they must be scared about it, though, at Farmington.
I actually haven't heard any real concern from anyone around here. My buddy from Orono, not Farmington, but somewhat close by, sister schools, he's a little scared about it. But again, from the common people, I haven't heard too much scare around here.
My buddy from Orono, a.k.a. Brody, is a little scared about it too. So
they started doing that thing where it's like they put the sanitizer in a sprayer. They go down the halls in the morning and they spray the doorknobs. It kind of looks like those little clippets from where they're going down the streets with the fumigator things.
Huh.
Desanitizing. Yeah. It's kind of flipping me out a little bit.
You scared, Brody?
A little.
You might get the coronavirus. I don't know. Just don't come home for like months, okay? You're already, you've been exposed.
You're too Brody. Far gone. I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
I might catch you through this. Get out. Leave the podcast right now, Brody. I don't want.
Oh my God!
It's good to hear they're taking steps.
But Yeah. Yeah. I was just in Waterville before I just got back, and I was thinking, oh my God, I'm in the public place. There's a lot of people. One of them could have the coronavirus. Okay.
I love how the CDC's basically been like, wash your hands and don't travel to Italy or China. And everyone's like, panic. Oh my gosh, we gotta do every precaution imaginable.
Well, I mean, it is a scary disease that a lot of people are scared of, Isaac. I mean, just it'll run its course. Let it run its course, and before you know it, we'll be on to the next thing.
Yeah, the thing about it is it's definitely worth being it's worth knowing about it, and it's worth taking some precautions, but you have to keep in mind there's not a whole lot you can do personally other than what they always recommend when anything breaks out. Just wash your hands, don't go to huge crowds for right now, and just generally don't touch your mouth, your nose, your ears. And that's the best you can do. There's no point in overly worrying.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
My biggest concern with the whole coronavirus thing is that it's going to damage the economy in China, which will lead to damage in our economy because we're so connected now. And that would be bad. I would not like that.
But we did just have record, it went down a little bit, and then we've had another record day. So I don't think it's affecting the markets too much. It'll only start affecting the markets when we're not when Trump, if Trump does this, but shutting off trade from China, that's when it's going to really screw us. But
I don't think we could do
happen.
that. We're far too dependent on China. I don't think we could cut off trade.
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely something that it's a predicament. We're in a predicament right now, but no, I mean, like I was telling Thomas when I had a conversation with him not long ago, when Trump first came into office, he was telling companies, you need to start manufacturing in the United States. There's no more going overseas, manufacturing it with cheap labor, cheap parts, and then shipping it to the United States, and we're not getting any money from that, because basically stealing, we're losing American jobs, because General Motors, for instance, it was around the holidays. It must have been a year or two ago. I remember hearing about it though. I was watching the news, and a ton of employees were laid off, and they were closing their branch and moving to Mexico. And I remember Trump was saying something about how that's not going to happen, or you guys are going to be tariffs, hardcore. And I remember them. I believe they didn't move the entire operation, but geez, I mean, that's why Trump is a good asset to the United States, because we rely so heavily on China that anytime something like this happens, we're basically screwed, because eventually, especially if it I'm being serious, Isaac. If it originates in China or wherever it originated.
I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm just laughing at I don't know. Just
we're Americans, we're consumers, we still need to consume stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
So I got another question for you, Thomas. So what do you think of Trump's Twitter anyway? What's what do you think about that?
Twitter's a great tool for getting your thoughts of the moment across, and I actually really like that the president's on Twitter, because we can see what he's saying, not just through press releases and what he says on TV, but this is like an inside scoop on how he really feels. I do think occasionally he might say some things, or he doesn't spell check as often as maybe he should, looking at Covfefe. But all in all, I'm really glad he has that, maybe connection isn't the word, but that connection with the voters. He really lets us see what's going on in his mind, and I like that.
Oh, I do too, no doubt. It's pure epic. I love just watching his Twitter go, because I gotta say, I agree with about 90% of what he does, but it's always funny to see those tweets. And then you see them on the news, breaking news on MSNBC the next day.
Oh my gosh,
it's like,
can you believe what Trump just said on his Twitter?
Remember when he tweeted that picture of him on Rocky's body or whatever, and like it was all they had to fact check that on MSNBC. That is not actually Trump's body. No shit, Don Lemon. That's one good-looking 72-year-old. I'll tell you what. But yeah, no, I love his Twitter so much. It's great. I hate how they criticize it so much. The latest thing was Trump had tweeted a video of Joe Biden, because Joe Biden he screws up whenever he talks, and there was a video of Joe Biden saying, the only thing we can do, we're gonna lose in 2020. The only thing we can do is reelect Donald Trump. And it obviously was edited. It looked edited. I think it was like a Carpe Dante or whatever his name is, the meme maker. And Trump retweets his stuff all the time. Well, he retweeted this and he captioned it. The first time I agree with Joe, and it was all over CNN, all over MSNBC that same night. And I was watching a clip on Twitter, and I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me! Like they actually have to fact check this stuff. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, the media really blows it all out of proportion. I don't think the media understands that humor exists. And another example is that Covfefe thing. I mean, obviously a typo. I don't think Trump actually meant Covfefe, because why would he? But that was actually in the news for a while, and it was all through social media, and people just jump on the wildest things nowadays. No one takes the time.
Or like, do you remember that video that went viral of the Photoshop of Trump's face on the, what was it? Not Men in Black, like the British Men in Black, Kingsman. And he's like shooting up the entire church, and it's all the...
I love that
the news so places. Much. That one was pretty blown up.
I think that's a Carpe thing again, but they pasted face on John Wick was one of them, and the other one was the Kingsman, and he was like, he had a pistol and he was shooting the media, and it was hilarious. It was just pure hilarious, but obviously it didn't go so well with the media. But I don't know. I think
the media doesn't like anything that breaks conformity and their system of doing things.
It's kind of sad. And another example of, and this isn't Trump, but the media with comedy, they absolutely hate comedy. They hate comedy that breaks boundaries. It was the Golden Globes, and Ricky Gervais was up there on stage. And he was telling the actors, you get your award, you come up here, you say, you thank your mom, your dad, your nan, or whatever you got to thank, but don't sit there and act like you're better than the citizens of the United States, or however which way he said it, because Apple was there, because Apple launched their streaming service, and Tim Cook was there. And obviously they got their sweatshops in India and China and all that. So basically, Ricky Gervais was saying, stop acting like you're some saint because you're working for a company that's hiring, that, they're making your iPhone in India or whatever for 10 cents an hour or whatever. And I thought that was funny because he's one of the first people in Hollywood that's really, well, he's not the first, but he's one of the first that's kind of, not acting like the rest of them, like, oh, you got to be a Democrat,
Sure. It's dangerous when you're a big figure like that to say anything that breaks their system, because they're gonna do something. They're gonna take you down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw that, and I agree.
What do you think?
Actually, really funny to see, and I thought it was a great speech, or I don't know if you'd call it a speech, but it was funny. It was comedic. And I really loved watching the reactions of everyone in the audience looking at him, just getting mad. Because he had a point. I mean, all of these figures, they're making how much money? And they're not common people. That should be fact of life. But they act as if they are, and then they make these donations, or they make this symbol of superiority, and they act like we should all be doing it. But they don't really acknowledge that we're just in very different spheres, and we can't do what they do, and they shouldn't be looking down on us like they do in that sense. And it was really cool to see someone point that out for once.
Yeah, the way I look at it, it doesn't matter who you are. Hollywood, they've thought this for years. they think they're above everyone. They think they have this like secret knowledge that none of us know. Sure, you do something good, like for instance, a lot of these Hollywood actors, they're worth millions, if not hundreds of millions. Like I remember one instance was this went viral on Twitter. It was former President George H.W. Bush was talking to Ellen DeGeneres at some like football game or something, and it was number one trending on Twitter. It's like, seriously, so liberals, not liberals, but Democrats aren't allowed to speak with Republicans. Like, it makes no sense to me. Their logic, it makes no sense. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it really goes back to that divisiveness thing. It's a shame that just two people from opposing parties talking is all of a sudden news. I mean, regardless of the people, you should be able to have a right wing or a Republican, a left wing or a Democrat, and they should be able to just talk to each other. They should be able to communicate. They don't have to agree, obviously. I mean, there's two different ideologies, but the fact that it's newsworthy that it happened, or these celebrities get so much attention when they say something when it's really not their place to say so necessarily. It's wild.
Yeah, I was watching this. It might have been Mark Dice on YouTube, and he was going around Hollywood asking random people on the street questions about. He was comparing policies, and I think it was back in it must have been 2017 or maybe it was 2016, and the one policy was of Hillary Clinton. The other policy was Donald Trump, and they were walking around. He was walking around Hollywood, and he was asking these random people, but he was tricking them. He said that. This example, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, he was saying that Donald Trump's plan was Hillary Clinton's plan, and Hillary Clinton's plan was Donald Trump. But because it was Hillary Clinton, they were always saying, "Oh, that's a good plan. That's a good plan." And then when he revealed that it was Donald Trump's plan, they were like, "No way!
I bamboozled you."
You just admitted, literally, like I don't know. It's crazy. But
I don't know if that's the right way necessarily to go about it. That's very attacky.
Like, you think that's attacky?
Like if I was someone that worked in the movie industry or the film industry, and I had to keep, a certain way. If I had to look a certain way so people wouldn't fire me. I mean, I wouldn't want someone coming up to me and tricking me like that. If I'm choosing to be silent about it, then
these weren't actors. These were random citizens walking on the sidewalk in Hollywood Boulevard.
I thought you were talking about. I guess I was completely.
No, I should have explained that better. But yeah, it was something. We're in such a divided country, and it's kind of crazy because people. If you like something, you shouldn't be afraid to say if you like something or you don't.
For sure.
It's crazy. It's mad, and this has a lot to do with Silicon Valley also, where you can't post things online like Facebook, for instance. I have friends on Facebook that have been shadow banned or banned on Facebook, shadow banned because they post pro-Trump or they share pro-Trump stuff. It's just, I don't know. We live in a country that you should be allowed to share your point of view.
I mean, that's basically what it's built on.
But it's like it's almost not allowed.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you see that in the cancel culture nowadays, where there's just some small, maybe it's a conservative show, and people will storm it. They'll talk to all the advertisers and be like, you really can't be on this show, it's conservative, yada yada yada. And I'm sure it happens the other way too, but I've only seen it on the conservative side. And it's a shame because, like you said, you should be allowed to voice your opinion. There's nothing wrong with being on the other side of the aisle.
I totally agree with you. There was one example so YouTube is becoming more of a digital platform for media company. Like you'll see a lot of Tonight Show stuff on there. And there was just one example. There's a show, the Fine Brothers, and they have this React show. You probably heard of it, but it's very, very large. And they had this conservative on there for years. They do these things where different generations react to things. So like older people will react to things that younger people, like music, for instance. So anything that's really popular, they'll put in front of these people, and they have to share their opinion.
12-year-olds listen to Nirvana for the first time. Oh my god!
Yeah. Well, anyway, this guy was a conservative, and they did the whole Trump versus Hillary thing, and he was pro-Trump. Like this guy, he's a business owner. He gets it. He understands. You know, we can't. I mean, we're a capitalist country. We should stay that way. Business owners can't afford to up the minimum wage unless, you know, they're planning on cutting hours or whatever. So he was understanding about that. He got fired from the show like within a couple months because people were going to advertise, because they work with a lot of big studios, Hollywood studios. If I don't quote me on this, but I believe Warner Brothers funds them, and that guy isn't on there anymore. Like he got kicked off pretty quickly. But it's just crazy. So, cancel culture. I know you brought up cancel culture. That's definitely something nowadays.
Yeah, no. Cancel culture is just generally bad news. It's just people being overly toxic and trying to just silence anything that they do not like. And it's exactly. I would say it's directly correlated with the problems with all of what we've pretty much been talking about today. So, yeah. I mean,
didn't you do a paper on cancel culture, Isaac?
Oh yeah, sure. It was just a school paper, but yeah, I went around and I asked some like just general random people, trying to get people with different views to answer my questions about what they if they knew what cancel culture was, about what they thought about who they thought was really the driving force. And it's typically people just think it's the opposite side as them. You know, if they're Republican, Democrats, they're canceling people. If they're Democrat, they're like Republicans are canceling people. I mean, it's definitely Democrats canceling people, but it's just interesting to see people point their finger at the other side and just say, it's them. They're the problem. See? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. What is your take on cancel culture, Thomas?
I mean, I think that's basically defamation at that point. And I think we've kind of lost sight of what defamation really is in our modern politics.
Totally. Yeah.
And defamation, it's a crime. People don't really get in trouble for it anymore, though. They just get fines if they hurt their business, but you don't get in trouble anymore if you completely ruin someone's social ability. Because
or
now everyone hates
thing.
Them.
Yeah.
Or say something completely wrong.
Yeah.
Not true.
It also, so here's an example of a couple years ago, the Oscars, Kevin Hart was supposed to host, and because of something that he said on Twitter 10 plus years ago, they fired him. And you should, like, I don't remember what he said. It was something in regards to the homosexual side of things.
I think it was if my son was ever told me he was a homosexual, I would think such and such. I can't remember what it was, but it was bad. I think it's bad if my kid is gay.
But it was a joke. He's a comedian.
Right.
And he made people laugh, but he became, a couple years ago, Kevin Hart was on top. Like everyone knew who Kevin Hart was, and they still to this day. But he had an opportunity to host the Oscars, and they completely fired him because some social justice warrior keyboard purple-haired people were offended. It's like, come on, yeah. I don't like that word because everything triggers everyone. Like,
Gage, you should walk around with a big banner on your shirt that says "trigger warning."
Yeah, yeah. We when back in 2016, we got this big ass Trump 2016 sign. We put it on our barn. It's facing the road, and this was before. Like now, I drive through Maine and I see Trump signs, Trump flags all over on properties, all that stuff. In 2016, you didn't see that as much because obviously people are afraid, and now it's like no one really cares. He's doing, now they know he's doing a good job.
Well, he's proved himself. In 2016, he was a risky candidate. He was someone we didn't really know what he was going to do. He had been on both sides of the party, but now we've seen him in action, seen that he is working hard, seeing that he's doing things that make sense and not doing harm to our country. So people obviously are going to feel more comfortable supporting him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he definitely has. But pivoting one more time, I got to ask you, Thomas. So we spoke last time, and Mike Bloomberg was still in the race. And now, in the 2020 election race, all we have left is Bernie and Joe Biden. What is your take on that? Because Senator Elizabeth Warren's out. Mike Bloomberg, who we thought was going to do really well on Super Tuesday, didn't do well at all. He dropped out. He wasted about $500 million trying to buy an election, which he obviously didn't do. But yeah, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd like to say is don't forget Tulsi. As far as I know, she's still in the race. Making a big change, I guess. But
I haven't seen her. At a debate.
Has anyone? But she's technically still in there. I find Bloomberg dropping out super reassuring, if nothing else, for the fact that he spent so much money. And that just really proves to the American people, the registered voters, the voters who aren't registered because they're skeptical. This really just proves that you can't buy an election. Like, you need something else. Bloomberg had so much money and he got almost no delegates. He won, I believe, only Samoa, which, again, just goes to show that you need something behind it. People accuse Trump all the time of being in his position just because he's rich. And sure, the money helped, but quite obviously he had something behind his money. He had an agenda. He had things he planned to do, promises he made, promises he's kept. And yeah, I'm really glad, and I hope that the American people see that as some reassurance.
Well, the crazy thing is, everyone in the Democrat nominees, all they were running on was to beat Trump, and that isn't going to win you an election.
Right? Yeah.
He basically had no policy.
Now we're left with communist Bernie and and Joe Biden.
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah.
Super Thursday. Oh, Super Tuesday. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I swear to God, he's. What was that?
I really think you hit the nail on the head. You can't win and won't win an election if your only campaign is I can beat the other guy, because that's not reassuring, again, to the American people. They see the great economy. They see the low unemployment. They like that. And if all you have to say is, oh, well, I'm going to stop him, that there's nothing there for people to vote on, because they like what they see, and they're going to need at least some sort of counter plan to work with.
They just don't like the controversy. I mean, I remember hearing, I think it was Bill Maher say that he hopes that there's a recession because that'll mean Trump probably won't get reelected. And it's like, that's not, people lost their house in 2007, 2008. Like, I feel like people are taking, the Democrats, especially politics, way too far, because just because you don't like a guy doesn't mean you need to wish the worst upon the 300 million odd American citizens. Like, that's just, it's not right to me. I feel like politics is getting too deadly.
I agree. That's just such an awful thing to say. I mean, he's right in the sense that if the economy was to tank, that would really hurt Trump and that'd look really bad, but it isn't, it hasn't, it probably won't. But to just wish that would happen purely for political gain, I can't even fathom that we allow that to happen nowadays.
I don't either. But hey, I mean, the economy's great. It's a great time to invest your money. You know, I've talked to quite a few people. They tell me their 401ks are looking quite nice right now. So, I mean,
buy the dips.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think he's doing a good job, but at the end of the day, you're not gonna have. So a lot of people, like I told you this when I met you in person, Thomas. I graduated high school last June, and a lot of people at my school were very much like they didn't want to register. They had no interest in politics, but the only reason was because it's too controversial for them. And when I hear that, I always cringe, because it's like, you want to know something? We live in a democracy. The only, like, I know someone who, the main election, Janet Mills became governor, and I saw him on Facebook constantly annoyed at her and was so disappointed in the election results. Well, this guy didn't vote at all. So someone had commented on his post and was saying, well, you know, you didn't vote, so you have no room to talk about it. And that's true. But then you think about it on a larger scale. Yeah, Isaac, you think about it on a larger scale. 300 million odd American citizens, and about 80 million of them are voting. I don't know. I think that's crazy. People need to vote. But
absolutely,
yeah, I mean, they're the ones that are. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's really wild to me that people don't care. It's one thing to think that you're not as well informed as you should be, because you see all these pundits on TV and they know what they're talking about, but this is their career. They have time to spend every minute of every day reading the news.
Yeah.
And it's just not feasible for the average American working 40 hours a week to be able to be at that level. But it's not too hard to have a general understanding of what's going on. Just read the paper every now and then. But people just simply don't care. Even though politics is how society is run, it's such a huge aspect of our lives, from everything from the economy, including our 401ks, to social stuff like should gay marriage be legalized. And to completely not care about any of that stuff it shouldn't be a hard sell to get someone to register to vote and then to vote. But for some reason, it really is.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is a lot of media is extremely biased. So it's hard to not constantly look at politics, because you watch, for instance, for years, my family has watched CBS, because TV5, you know, we watch local news and then it goes to the world news. And that CBS is very biased, along with ABC, you know, NBC and all them. And it's really hard to see the positions of everyone when you have to watch so many different news outlets. It's just not feasible. People don't have the time. And I just wish that media, news especially, didn't have a bias and just told you the straight facts as it is. I mean, and let you make your own opinion.
I think that's what news is supposed to be. That's the point of news. It's to assist you in your understanding of what's going on, but instead they're trying to spoon feed people what they want them to think.
Absolutely. And a lot of people think the reaction to that, instead of fixing the news, a lot of people think the reaction should be, oh, just read and listen to the news on multiple different websites, multiple podcasts from each side, meet somewhere in the middle, which is great in theory, because you're right. You can kind of triangulate what the real facts are, and then you can make your opinion. But that does lengthen the process, as opposed to if they just gave you the bare bones facts without the commentary, without the bias. And if you have to triangulate everything yourself, like I said, it takes longer. And again, people are working 40 hours a week. They have their job, they have their social lives, they have families to bring up, families to feed. They don't have time to go to 3 different websites every day for one article. So we really need to fix the media, get things less biased, get the facts so the people can make their own decisions.
I mean, part of that is why I think it's so important that people should try to talk to each other more with politics. Because right now, no one's open to talking about politics with one another. But if we share what we think with one another, that will really help meld, ideas together and help everyone have a better understanding of things.
Yeah, and just to go off that a little bit more, it's awesome when people are talking about politics because that's how you shape your own views. I mean, you don't have to adopt the view of the other side, but kind of with the triangulation thing again, if you're talking to someone and they bring up a valid point, maybe you shift your stance just a little bit and then you have a better understanding, a better idea of how things should be. But if you're just talking to people of your own party or your own ideological train of thought, then it's not going to accomplish much. We really need to somehow normalize talking to the other side.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Steven Crowder's Change My Mind does so well, because people like that having a civil conversation. I've talked to Isaac and Brody many times, and they've helped me look at a different aspect of things, and I appreciate that because that's how you create a middle ground, is having a conversation. And I think that's why Congress it's so hard to get things done nowadays, is because you have both sides bickering. You need to just have a civil conversation, and the Democrats need to put their, cards on the table. The Republicans need to do the same. We need to put this, I'm Republican, I hate Democrats, and I'm a Democrat, I hate Republicans thing aside. When, leave that at the door. That is the only way that a democracy like ours is going to prosper. And I don't know. That's kind of my look on it.
I mean, in part, I think that could be just due to the limited political party system that we have. What's your take on that, Thomas? Directly working in a party for how the party system works. Is the party system a good thing? Does it bring harm?
Well,
what do you think?
Like everything else, there's bonuses and there's negatives. I mean, the negative would be that you do end up with people who only vote for Democrats or only vote for Republicans. And even though we have third parties, they don't get a whole lot of look. But I'd say the majorities are definitely much more beneficial than the negatives. So, for example, like I've been saying, it's hard to keep up with every nitty gritty aspect of politics. Sometimes you forget to look into your local election, or actually, in Maine, in Brewer, we had a special election due to someone passing away, unfortunately. And sometimes you don't hear about that in time. There wasn't a whole lot of campaigning for this guy because he didn't have as much time as a traditional candidate up for re-election. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know the two candidates, it's super helpful if they're in a party, because then you know at least a generalized idea of who they are as a person. You know how they'll vote on certain key issues. So there are a lot of benefits to being in a party and understanding the two-party system.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
What would you say, like a theoretical, I've said this in the past many times, but do you think politics would be a lot smoother if we dropped the party system and people just ran as themselves with the policies they have, rather than having this like shell, the RNC and the DNC, being a part of it? Because I feel like that's really what makes politics so toxic, is when you have those giant parties behind you, because that makes it controversial. And I think if you had people running for themselves, their policies, I feel like that would be a lot smoother. But what do you think?
Well, you see, that's an interesting thought experiment. I'm not sure if I'd say smoother, but it would be interesting, because then you'd have candidates with no affiliation with a party. They're running. You have no idea what to expect until they start speaking.
But you'd have to listen to them to know if you like them or not. What a crazy...
Yeah. Yeah, it would be wild to have people actually listening and paying attention, but that would also move some of the bias. I know a lot of Democrats personally that actually wouldn't mind Trump or other Republican candidates even that I've spoken to them about. But actually, here's an example. I went door knocking 2 years ago and knocked on a Democrat's door. Obviously, I won't give their address or name, but we went, "Hey, this is my guy. He's running." And their response was, "Look, you can just stop right now. I'm voting Democrat up and down the ticket. I don't know who's running and I don't care. I'm only voting for the Democrats." And that, if there is a negative to the two-party system, it's that people can do that. If there wasn't parties, I don't know if it's feasible to actually get rid of them. I think people would form their own coalitions anyway. But assuming we could get rid of the parties, there would be the benefit of people would not be able to party line vote without knowledge.
Yeah. I just think nowadays, you have so much bias in politics, and it's like you have some people that run on good positions, but a lot of people that have good ideas never run for any office because of the simple fact that they don't want to be considered a Republican or a Democrat. It's very hard, and there's no chance of an independent becoming president, or even like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party, because they just have such a small voter base. You have the RNC and the DNC, which are the two big boys, and it's very difficult to run on a smaller party. So if there weren't parties, I feel like we'd have a lot more people like that had to listen, more educated on politics. But
I think that's the reason why people like the party so much, because it's an opening for laziness. I mean, as Thomas did say, it does make a lot of sense in a lot of ways, because you can get a general idea of what someone's going to be like from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are lazy, so they're not, instead of starting with a general idea and then looking for more information, instead they stop at that general idea and they're like, okay, let's go with that one.
There is the major benefit, though, of parties. They're not just there, so there's a D or an R next to the candidate's name. The parties also function as a way to assist the candidates when they're running. So let's say there's no parties. So someone like Donald Trump wants to run. Sure, you have to listen, you have to be more informed. But maybe Trump's a bad example. He has quite a bit of money himself. But let's say Joe Blow doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have any connections. That's where a party can step in and really help them advertise, help them get a volunteer base, and help them get their name known so they can actually make it to debate stages, make it onto TV, and actually get the voters to know who they are. Because it would be, if there was no parties, I'd have to imagine it would be nearly impossible to get adequate television time or get your name out there, get the name recognition you need to win elections.
Sure, yeah.
Well, we have this problem in Congress. A lot of people that want to go into a political run for the Senate or the House, a lot of people so let's say you have your own political views. Some of them are liberal, some of them are Democrat. Obviously, you'd probably want to run as an independent, but now it's like the chances of getting elected in that sense. Like we have in Maine, Angus King, he leans more left. We have Susan Collins, leans more right. But you have all so one thing that I dislike a lot is career politicians, no term limits in Congress. But if I feel like it'd be very hard to get anything done if right now, especially because you have the two-party system and you have people that believe in the ideologies of the RNC and the DNC. And there's a lot of bickering because no one can agree on anything, especially like when Trump was trying to acquire funding for the wall. There was so much bickering. And I believe, didn't they, for the impeachment, they had a recess or something. They went on a holiday break just because, they had the vote before holiday break just because they didn't want people on the DNC side to go home, talk to their families, and then maybe change their vote. They were so adamant on having that vote done I don't know. It's like, don't have a conversation with a Republican because your mind might be changed. But
That'd be the worst. We can't have
that'd be the worst. But yeah, no, I don't know. What do you think about that, Thomas?
Oh, what do I think about what exactly?
Oh, sorry, I don't know. This is a new concept.
Freeze them, Gage. Give them a chance.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, this is a new concept. Us having a guest on. Usually when it's just myself, Brody, and Isaac, it's like whoever wants to talk talks.
We just rant. We mumble.
Yeah, Brody, you still alive?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Phew.
Woo!
Thought we lost it to the coronavirus for a minute.
Yeah. Ooh. So final thoughts. We're getting into about an hour. So what is your prediction for 2020 as far as who do you think will be the nominee of the Democratic side? Obviously, you're not a time traveler, as far as we know. But yeah, what can you tell the listeners? What do you think about what the current debate stage looks like, and who do you think will take the nominee home?
Well, first of all, I can promise I'm not a time traveler. That much I can assure you of.
Okay.
Right now, I hate to say it, I don't think Tulsi's going to get it. I don't think she has the support. But between Bernie and Biden, it's going to be interesting. I think Biden's going to take it. Right now, he's looking like the front runner. And I mean, much like it happened last time Bernie ran, he has really good grassroots, but he just can't get through to the nomination. I don't think the Democratic Party really wants him, the establishment anyway. So I think it's going to end up Biden-Trump. And you said earlier, Biden's a gaffe machine. He's called Sleepy Joe. I think he should be called Creepy Joe. I mean, smells a girl's hair is questionable.
Yeah.
But
I want that man my president now.
Yeah, so I think it's him versus Trump, and when you look at the promises Trump has made, the promises Trump has kept, I can't see how Trump doesn't win it. The economy's great. Trump's doing just a wonderful job. He's appointing justices, and Biden, again, doesn't really have much of a platform other than look at the president we had last time. I was known to be part of his thing, and that's not a strong case.
No, not really.
I can beat Trump, which I think we're all seeing isn't really that much of a clear victory for him. And even if, it's just not a good position to have. He doesn't have many unique thoughts. He forgets who's his wife, who's his sister. He forgets what day it is. He's just not a strong candidate. So it's going to be a win for Trump, I think.
I mean, imagine if we had Creepy Joe in office, okay? The school visits, especially elementary school visits to the White House, they would skyrocket. Imagine all the young children he could deeply embrace.
I'd start homeschooling my kids.
I don't know. Ooh, yeah. Those videos of Creepy Joe, though. Ooh. And then the whole Hunter Biden thing, that's another thing. Trump, I can't wait for the presidential debates because Trump is going to wreck him. Like, seriously, if he's the nominee.
Yeah, not just does Trump have great policy and he has done super well as the president, he's just beautiful on the debate stage. Watching him last cycle was just a treat, honestly. And I can't wait to see how he performs against Biden, or if I'm wrong, against Bernie. I'm really excited to watch it.
I am too. But yeah, so I think we've just about run out of time for today. We've been, this is an hour podcast. So thank you, Thomas Young. So I know that you, so why don't you tell the listeners at home how they can help join the main GOP or the GOP of their state. Tell them how they can get involved and help.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in Maine, you can contact me at
thomas.young@mainegop.com.
If you're in another state, I'm not well versed on how you can get involved. I would recommend go to your local Republican committee meetings, county meetings, anything Republican meeting, and you're bound to find something. TrumpVictory.com, I believe, has a few sign-up sheets. And that's really how you get involved.
Yeah. At
the very least, please go vote. That's really my main point.
In November, go vote.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you vote for. Go vote. Potentially making America great again, or keeping America great again. Sorry. But well, guys, I hope you did enjoy this episode of the Midday Mumbles podcast. Thank you to our special guest, Thomas, for coming on. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
No worries. It's been a treat. This has been a good conversation.
Yeah,
So
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Brody, are you still alive?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Okay. Oh, second time. But yeah, so thank you guys all for listening. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/middaymumbles. Again, that's patreon.com/middaymumbles. One more time, patreon.com/middaymumbles. And yeah, so final thoughts. Did anyone have anything to say before we end out the episode?
Oh, Gage, we didn't reply to Josh in his email. He sent us an email.
Oh crap! Yes. Hold on.
We finally got. We've been pestering people to send us emails, and we got an email.
Okay. So from Josh, one of our listeners, he says, "Hey, Gage, Isaac, and Brody. My name is Josh from San Jose, California." I actually, when I first read this, I thought it was San Jose. I'm kind of a retard. San Jose, California, and I am a huge fan of the podcast, and I hope you are all doing well today. I have been listening since the first episode, and I have a question. So there's a joke where you guys have mentioned flipping a switch, and everyone laughed. Can you explain why that's funny, or am I stupid? By the way, I don't mind if you say the first. Okay, thank you, and please continue creating amazing podcasts.
Thank you.
That's a funny. Yes.
Thank you, Josh.
for the email.
That is very nice. I finally got someone to send us an email. And also, flip the switch. Now that's a funny story, which we probably should have explained.
Yes.
So me, Brody, and Gage, we were all kind of just in a Discord call hanging out. And Gage is getting upset about his internet speed, so he goes ahead and he just calls up his internet service provider, and he's yelling at the dude on the phone that's not even responsible for like anything to do with how much internet comes into his house, and he's like, just flip the switch to make it go faster, like flip the switch.
You're making me sound like a bad guy. We have 100 megs at our house, and I was getting no more than about 20 megs on the speed test that night.
Oh, poor you.
Well, no, it isn't poor me. I kept lagging out of stuff, so I called the Spectrum guy, and I'm being nice. I'm like, hello, I have this problem. This is what we're doing. We pay for this much internet, and I'm getting this much. And he's like, oh, sorry, sir. I don't know what to do. I said, just flip the switch. Come on, man. Help me out. So yeah, that's kind of a running joke in our friend group. So Thomas, the more you know. All right. But yeah, thanks, Josh. If you guys want to send us more emails and be featured in the next episode of the Midday Mumbles podcast, email us at talkmumbles@gmail.com. I know I speak 100 miles an hour, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so hey, until next time, guys. Gage, Brody, and Isaac, and Thomas signing off. Bye.
See you later.
See ya.